What if I told you the game sitting in the corner of every pub has secrets that even pro players don't talk about? From medieval war games to strange rules nobody can fully explain, here are 11 weird facts about darts you probably never knew. Before darts became a bar sport, it was actually a battlefield exercise. Soldiers in medieval England used to throw short arrows at the bottom of wine barrels to practice their aim. Over time, the game moved indoors, and when barrels weren't available, they used slices of tree trunks, each ring naturally forming a target. That's right, your local dartboard has more in common with medieval warfare than you might think. But those rough wooden targets were just the beginning, because the strange rules we play by today are even more puzzling than the game's origins. Long before neon-lit bars and televised tournaments, darts was born from something a lot rougher: military boredom. Soldiers in medieval England, waiting between battles, would chop the ends off arrows and throw them at upturned wine barrels to test their aim. It was a mix of skill, competition, and plain old downtime. Eventually, someone figured out that a slice of tree trunk made an even better target. The growth rings naturally formed scoring circles. As the game spread across pubs, the equipment changed, but the spirit stayed the same: precision, bragging rights, and a little chaos. What's wild is that early dartboards were never identical. Each pub had its own homemade board, its own rules, and its own version of fair play. But the weirdest part? That randomness is exactly what shaped the game we know today. Because when people finally tried to standardize darts, the measurements they chose made no sense. And that's where the next fact begins. If you've ever stood at a dartboard and thought, why does this feel like such an oddly specific distance? You're not alone. The official throw line, or oki, sits exactly 7 feet 9¼ inches from the board. That number looks so random, it almost feels like a typo. But here's the thing, it's not random at all. It's the product of years of disagreement, drunken guesswork, and a few stubborn pub owners. Back in the early days, there was no official throwing distance. Each pub had its own line, usually measured by whatever object happened to be nearby: a broom handle, a bar mat, or even a stride and a half from the landlord's boot. When leagues started forming, chaos followed. Players from one town would travel to another and suddenly find the line was shorter, longer, or crooked. Nobody could agree. Eventually, in the mid-20th century, organizers tried to standardize it. Legend says a brewery called News of the World, who sponsored tournaments at the time, settled the argument by averaging several popular measurements, and that's how we ended up with 7 feet 9¼ inches. The quarter inch was supposedly added to make sure the oki distance looked official. Even stranger, soft-tip darts, the kind used in electronic boards, don't follow that same rule. Their line is slightly longer at 8 feet exactly. So, depending on where you play, your muscle memory could be technically wrong in another league. And if the line's bizarre, the board itself might be even weirder, because the thing you're aiming at, that clean circle of colors, has a backstory no one expects. The dartboard might look simple, but it's one of the most misunderstood pieces of sports equipment ever made. You've probably heard someone say it's made of horsehair, and while that sounds fancy, it's complete nonsense. In reality, modern dartboards are made of sisal fiber, a tough material from a type of agave plant grown mostly in East Africa. Before sisal took over in the 1932, dartboards went through some truly odd phases. The earliest ones were carved from solid wood, often elm or poplar. Players had to soak them in water every night to keep them from drying and cracking. Miss a day, and your board would literally splinter apart. Later, some pubs used rolled paper, clay, or cork, anything that could take a dart tip without shattering. Then came the big myth: bristle boards. People started saying they were made from pig bristles or horsehair because of the texture. The truth? The fibers just looked like bristles. The real innovation was in how those sisal strands were tightly packed together. That's why you can pull darts out 1,000 times and the holes seem to disappear, the fibers self-heal. And the board's layout? It wasn't random either. In 1896, a carpenter named Brian Gamlin designed the number sequence specifically to punish bad aim. He arranged the numbers so that high-scoring areas were surrounded by low ones, meaning one wrong flick could destroy your score. It was psychological warfare hidden inside a wooden circle. Even the wire dividers have evolved. Early boards used thick metal wires that caused bounce-outs, where darts would hit the metal and fall to the floor. Modern blade boards use razor-thin wiring to keep darts sticking clean. So next time you hit a triple 20, remember you're standing in front of a piece of engineering that's been refined for over 100 years. But we're still only halfway through the weirdness, because while the board might be high-tech, the ways people play on it can get absolutely crazy. In darts, perfection has a name, the 9-darter. It's the holy grail of the game, the moment every player dreams of but almost no one achieves. A leg in darts starts at 501 points, and to finish it in just 9, throws the minimum possible, is basically hitting perfection 3 turns in a row. To put it in perspective, thousands of professional matches are played every year, and only a handful end with a 9-darter. Even at the world level, it's so rare that when one happens, the crowd explodes like someone just scored the winning goal in the World Cup. What makes it even crazier is that there's not just one way to do it. There are over 3,900 possible combinations that can lead to a perfect 501. But every path demands precision most of us can't even imagine. Miss by a millimeter and the dream's over. The first televised 9-darter happened in 1984, and it changed darts forever. Overnight, it turned the game from a pub pastime into a global spectacle. Players started practicing relentlessly, chasing that moment of flawless execution. Some even trained for years without ever getting close. But here's the twist, as perfect as a 9-darter is, the human body isn't built for that kind of pressure. Because when things go wrong, they can go really wrong, and that leads us to one of the strangest conditions in all of sports. Imagine being one of the best dart players in the world, steady aim, perfect rhythm, and then, one day, your body simply refuses to throw. That's dartitis, one of the strangest and most frustrating conditions any athlete can face. It starts slowly, maybe you hesitate before releasing the dart, or your hand locks up for a split second, then it gets worse. You can aim, you can pull your arm back, but you just can't let go. Some players describe it as an invisible wall between their brain and their hand. It's not a physical injury, it's psychological. The brain overthinks the mechanics of throwing until the motion completely breaks down. Even legends like Eric Bristow, a 5-time world champion, fell victim to it. One day, he could hit triple 20 seconds like a machine. The next, he could barely hit the board. What's most bizarre is that there's no proven cure. Some players take years to recover, others never do. It's like the game itself turns on you. The very precision you've spent your life mastering becomes your biggest enemy. And while dartitis is the most haunting example, it's far from the only weird habit or quirk in the darts world. Because some of the game's biggest stars have stories that sound almost too strange to believe. You wouldn't think a game born out of taverns and tree trunks would turn into a multi-million-dollar sport, but that's exactly what happened. These days, top dart players earn more in a weekend than most people make in a year. Tournament prizes have exploded, with the PDC World Championship offering payouts in the hundreds of thousands. But the money didn't just change the players, it changed the entire vibe of the sport. Suddenly, guys who used to toss darts between beers were signing sponsorships, walking out to theme songs, and competing under blinding stage lights in front of roaring crowds. And with the fame came the pressure. When John Lowe hit the first televised 9-darter in 1984, he took home a £102,000 bonus, a life-changing amount at the time. But today, the stakes are even higher, and the spotlight can be brutal. Cameras zoom in on every miss, fans scream from just feet away, and one shaky throw can end a career. Still, even with all that money, the game can't seem to shake its roots. You'll still find pros downing a pint before matches, still chatting with fans at the bar after tournaments. It's this strange mix, the glamour of big money sports wrapped in the personality of a pub game, that gives darts its one-of-a-kind charm. But the culture isn't just about the money or the fame. The equipment itself, the darts, the flights, the tiny details, hides its own bizarre evolution, and it's full of facts even lifelong fans don't know. A dart may look simple, a metal point, a barrel, a shaft, and a flight, but every single part has a weird story behind it. Let's start with the flights, those little wings at the back. Before modern plastic designs, players used real feathers. Turkey feathers were the most common, and each one had to be hand-cut and glued perfectly, or the dart would wobble in flight. Imagine playing a tense match knowing your equipment came from last week's Thanksgiving dinner. Then, there's the barrel, the heaviest part of the dart. Early versions were made from brass or nickel silver, but pros quickly realized tungsten was better. It's denser, which means you can have a thinner dart without losing weight, perfect for stacking multiple darts close together on the board. Fun fact, tungsten is so hard that it's used in rocket nozzles. Yep, the same metal that can handle a spacecraft re-entry is what helps you nail a bullseye at the bar. Even the length of darts has a weird limit. The average dart is about 6 to 7 inches long, but the official rules allow darts up to 12 inches. That's basically a throwing knife, and yet it's technically legal. And then there's the grip, a deeply personal part of a dart that can make or break a player's rhythm. Some pros use custom barrels with laser-etched patterns designed to fit the exact shape of their fingers. Others go old school and play with the same darts for decades, never changing a thing. Every dart is a little reflection of its owner, part weapon, part superstition. But the weirdness doesn't stop there. Because once you start digging into the laws and history of darts, you find one of the strangest legal stories in sports history. Believe it or not, there was a time when darts was illegal. Yeah, the same game people play on a Tuesday night down at the pub was once at the center of a courtroom battle. It happened in 1908 when a pub owner named Jim Garside from Leeds was accused of running an illegal gambling game. Authorities claimed darts was a game of chance, just like betting on cards or dice. If they'd won that argument, darts might have been banned from pubs altogether. But Garside wasn't backing down. He brought in one of his best regulars, William Bigfoot Anakin, to prove them wrong. In court, Anakin stood in front of a dartboard and hit the exact spot he said he would not once, but over and over. The crowd gasped. The judge looked stunned. It was undeniable. Darts was a game of skill, not luck. That one demonstration didn't just save darts, it defined it. Overnight, pubs across the UK started hanging boards proudly on their walls. The trial turned a small local pastime into a nationwide tradition. But while darts escaped the courtroom, it couldn't escape controversy entirely. Because even now, more than a century later, there's still one question that sparks endless debate. Is darts really a sport, or just a pub game with better lighting? A survey in Ireland found that more than half of adults don't consider darts a real sport, even though its players train daily, compete for massive prize pools, and hit levels of precision that would make an archer jealous. The irony? That single court case, the one that proved darts was skill-based, is the reason the sport even exists today. And while the debate over what to call darts keeps going, the game itself just keeps getting stranger. Because beyond the rules and history lies a world of odd records, strange habits, and unbelievable moments that only true fans know about. Darts might not look like a record-breaking sport, but some of the stats and stories are downright wild. For example, the world record for the most bullseyes in 1 minute stands at 15. That's one bullseye every 4 seconds, without a single miss. The hand-eye coordination it takes for that is next-level superhuman. Then there's the longest match ever recorded, which lasted over 11 hours. Imagine standing, focusing, and throwing non-stop for half a day. Your arm would feel like it's made of lead, yet these players just kept going until someone finally broke through. But maybe the weirdest record belongs to a player who unknowingly threw 3 darts of different weights in the same match and still won. He didn't realize it until he picked them up later and noticed one felt lighter. That's like a golfer using mismatched clubs and still hitting every shot perfectly. Even the design of the dartboard has an odd legacy. The famous number sequence, the one that forces you to aim precisely between high and low risk zones, was created in 1896 by a carpenter named Brian Gamlin. But here's the twist. No one actually knows what happened to him. He disappeared before the design took off, leaving behind one of the most iconic sports layouts in history. And speaking of numbers, did you know there are more than 70,000 possible scoring combinations to finish a standard game of 501? Every throw can open a new path, which means no 2 matches are ever truly the same. Darts might look repetitive 3 throws, over and over, but under the surface, it's one of the most mathematically complex games ever played in a bar. But don't think the weirdness stops there, because the final few facts about darts take things from pretty strange to completely unexpected. Just when you think darts couldn't get any weirder, it does, because the version we all know, the one played in pubs and on TV, is only one of many. Around the world, people have twisted the game into forms you'd never expect. Take dartball, for example. It's basically darts mixed with baseball. Instead of a standard board, players aim at a huge target covered in bases, outs, and home runs. Each throw acts like a swing of the bat, and games can last for hours. It's especially popular in parts of the U.S. Midwest, where it's played in church basements and community halls. Talk about wholesome chaos. Then there's cricket, not the one with bats and wickets, but the dart version. Players race to close certain numbers on the board while blocking their opponents from scoring on the same ones. It's part math, part strategy, and part psychological warfare, because one missed shot can swing the entire game. Even the word hockey, that odd name for the throw line, has its own mysterious story. No one knows exactly where it came from. Some say it's from a brewery called S. Hockey and Sons, whose boxes were used as makeshift distance markers in pubs. Others think it came from an old slang term for spitting, as in, how far someone could hock their spit. Either way, it stuck, and now millions of players use a word with no confirmed origin. And here's a weird bonus. Darts once made a brief appearance in the Olympics, sort of. It was featured as a demonstration sport in some unofficial events, but never made the official lineup. Why? Probably because too many countries still saw it as a pub game, not a precision sport. Still, the beauty of darts is how universal it is. From basement leagues in the U.S. to pro tournaments in London, the same satisfying thunk of a dart hitting the board connects everyone who's ever played. But behind that simple sound is a game with centuries of strange history, impossible precision, and stories you'd never expect. So next time you pick up a dart, remember you're holding a tiny piece of history. What started as a medieval soldier's pastime has turned into a worldwide sport built on obsession, skill, and just the right amount of chaos. From pub trials to perfect throws, from feathered flights to fiberboards, darts has evolved through luck, logic, and a whole lot of personality. It's one of those rare games where math, muscle memory, and madness all meet in the same moment. And maybe that's why people love it so much. Because beneath the noise, the lights, and the shouting fans, darts is still exactly what it's always been, a simple game that rewards precision, punishes arrogance, and somehow never stops surprising us. So, which of these weird facts caught you off guard the most? Let me know in the comments, and if you love uncovering the strange stories behind ordinary things, don't forget to hit subscribe. You never know what I'll expose next.